Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Welcome back to the live show. I hope you can hear me. I think I took my mic off and didn't put it back on properly, but I hope it's working now. We're going to talk about a bunch of things today. There's a lot to catch up. Um, I'm going to share some of the content that I've been posting on Instagram, some interesting watches that came up and that I've written up on Instagram. As you guys know, it's a strange format on Instagram where everything is so visual, where everything is really tits and ass and spam. So I feel like sometimes people don't pay much attention unless they already know who I am and what I write about. So I like sharing it here because otherwise I feel like it goes to waste. We're gonna talk about the ongoing Ineichen Zurich auction, which focuses once again on the independents. They already had the part one. Part two is going on for the rest of this week. I think it concludes on the 22nd. Pardon me. We are also going to catch up a little bit with the situation between Christie's and Mohammed Zaman, the single owner collection, the consigner who gave them the single owner collection, The Passion for Time, which sold for a lot of money, uh, thanks especially to the last minute, last gasp involvement of a third party guarantor. Um, but Mr. Zaman, I think, was still not happy with the result for one reason or another and took Christie's to court, and the watches are currently impounded. So we're going to talk about that situation, which ended up becoming kind of the negative highlights of the fall auction season in Geneva, which was already hit quite hard, if you ask me, um, because of the cancellation of Only Watch, which is a situation that we talked about here, both on my own and with Periscope, with my friend Jose Perez. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of interesting things going on with the auction scene. The rest of the journalistic crew is incestuous as ever with the industry. They sit on their laps, they play golf with them, um, you know, go to vacations in Sicily to pretend that Jacob and Co is actually a respectable watch company, so on and so forth. So I'm sure you are as tired of that nonsense as I am, and I'm happy to be back with you for that reason. I like this stuff. Sometimes I need something heavily carbonated. The Italian stuff just doesn't cut it some days. Okay, so let's get to it. I'm gonna start with talking about a few things on the Instagram world. You guys know that last week there was a little holiday party at the Rodeo Drive boutique of Gégé Lecoutre, which is really a place they deserve. It's somewhat narrow, but extends nice and far back. Um, and it's really a classy boutique with a very nice strap bar. I think that shows you a lot of the options, a number of historic archival advertisements and works of art, uh, a number of different cases where you have kind of deconstructed representations of some of the interesting things and quirks and details that make especially the Reverso such a special watch, and also an entire display, of course, of calibers, some great watches, and even Atmos clocks, of course, which are their specialty. But of course, there were a lot of great people, a lot of great collectors, and as always with Jaeger LeCoultre's parties, and this happens with brands like JLC, like Cartier, that appeal in equal measure to both men and women. There were a lot of beautiful women out there as well, so shouts out to them. Coming back to our actual topic, this is one of the gorgeous pieces that I got to put on. This is the tourbillon that they put on Lenny Kravitz's wrist. It's the dual face, where you have the flying tourbillon cage on one side with a more uninterrupted, undisturbed, but also kind of no-nonsense look on the face of the watch, which is increasingly what they have done, right? You know, the way they translated the chronograph from the 1996 version to the new tribute chronograph, which we will look at a second later, is exactly kind of the epitome of this era. So you have something very tasteful, almost minimalistic on the face of it, on the recto face of the watch, so to speak. I've always loved the way that the tourbillon cage at 6 o'clock subtly interrupts and adds a contour to those godrons at that 6 o'clock. I think it's quite playful, and also somehow very charming, because the Reverso otherwise is a very symmetrical and proportional watch. So I like how the tourbillon version always has that disorderly detail. And the Verso side is, of course, once again, it has kind of a day and night theme, with the dial becoming black from silver, with a nice Nightwing style tourbillon bridge, open worked, which I really like, day-night indicator, and of course, as a nice little detail again, the JL logo on the spokes that cover the mainspring barrel. Beautiful Claude Paris or hobnail decoration on the plate that frames all these details. I think it's really a stunning watch. Of course, there's something, I don't know, there's something I really like about their pink gold as well, the 5N shade, which is very distinct from yellow gold. So if you're looking for yellow gold, that's not it. And I know I have a few friends who really want JLC to make more yellow gold watches, because again, they make such beautiful, elegant / dressy pieces that, and people are used to seeing and wearing those pieces in yellow gold. So sometimes people ask for it, but I feel this is just such a perfect and distinct alloy, without having to name it something playful, or patented. And I have in mind, of course, Rolex and Omega I also like the fact that it's not too coppery. Again, very distinct from yellow gold, but not too coppery at the same time. Very elegant. I had the chance to take a look at a friend's pink gold tribute chronograph, which I believe was the first one, or simply one of the first ones to be allocated in the US. A couple of weeks before that whole Reverso Stories gathering in New York, there were actually two collectors who were wearing this exact watch. There was a stainless steel, which I'm going to show next, stainless steel version that was in the store and on display, but there were two of the pink gold ones that were already on the wrists of collectors. And again, I really like the black they chose here. They have done some beautiful things with chocolate brown and even silver dials when it comes to combining these kinds of subtle time-only faces with pink gold. But I think this black is also quite stunning. And of course, the verso face is the retrograde chronograph. I've said before, I love this watch. I love this the fact that they brought it back into the fold, that they brought it back into the catalog. But I just think that the original is much more beautiful. The fact that it doesn't have the hours and minutes and the distinct sun ray like hour markers on the back, and the way it actually renders the entire movement in 14K pink gold as well, just makes it, to me, a much more charming and coherent design. This one, of course, needed to be different, right? So I don't blame them for trying something new. I don't blame them for trying to go forward and keeping to innovate. But that's my one small bone to pick with the design of the new tribute chronograph, which remains the same except for the case material and dial color between the stainless steel version and the pink gold version that you're seeing here. And something I need to say about ST is that he always has these beautiful sweaters. He always has the best selection of knitwear to wear. So he was wearing this beautiful purple cable knit sweater, which I thought was just too perfect. And this is the stainless steel version on my wrist. And as I mentioned, one thing they did that is an update, you might even say upgrades, to the 1960 original. Is how they simplified the face. But I'm seeing now people coming in, so I want to welcome both Basil's Bezels and St. Peter. Basil, thank you for the super sticker, which is a thumbs up, reminding everyone to hit the upvote, hit the like button. It's absolutely fundamental. As you guys know, a small channel like mine doesn't really get many eyes on it unless you write comments, hit the like button, support the channel with these super stickers and super chats. All of these things do push us forward. St. Peter is so generous with $4.99. It's your brother's birthday today. Wow, and yours is Saturday. Nice. Very nice. I have a friend whose birthday is December 25th. So it's the season. A lot to celebrate. That's so great. Wait, who was St. Peter had a brother, right? Was it Andrew who was his brother? So I will yeah, please send my regards to Saint Andrew. So send my regards to Saint Andrew. Happy birthday to him. I don't know Jesus. I know Jesus, but actually this friend is called Nazareth because he was born on Christmas Day. So yes, it's they had some sense of humor and a good sense of their Christianity. So yeah, you got the reference. I'm glad. But yes, happy birthday, Saint Andrew, and when Saturday comes, we're gonna come around to your birthday too, Saint Peter. Yes, one thing I wanted to say about the tribute chronograph is kind of a balancing act, I guess, in a way, because they have done a lot to simplify the main face, the so-called recto face, whereas the verso face, where they have the indications for the chronograph, both the seconds and the retrograde minute counter. And of course, it's much better to show you than simply tell you. But one of the beautiful things they did was, of course, to fit the original chronograph retrograde to the Grand Thai case that was introduced in 1991 on the 60th anniversary of the model. The face was simple enough, but they wanted to make it in a way that had some sense, that had some sign of it being a different watch, because ultimately it was the same case, same limited edition, reverso aesthetic in pink gold. And they wanted to have this mailbox flag like indicator at 5 o'clock, which drops down when you engage the chronograph, revealing the French word for running, marche. Of course, here it says arrêt. And it has a date window at 6, which is, of course, absolutely superfluous, but some design committee somewhere must have had something to say about it. So they had put it there. And as you can see, I'm extremely happy that they got rid of that in the current model. But look at this. I mean, this is just, you can't beat it. Right? You can't beat this sort of simplicity, this sort of quasi FP Jaune look. Of course, think about this. They had basically this full gold movement almost 8 years before François Paul generalized it in his catalog and put it into serial production. But I really love this sort of open work aesthetic that reveals, of course, the column wheel, that, of course, shows you all the different parts of the movement, and also just delights you with the case itself, with the bridge plates itself, which match the case. But you will see again from these two pictures that the way the chronograph pushers are protruding, the way that the primary dial is set and designed and laid out, there's just too much more going on than the current version, which I think really, really boils things down much better. Hey, Lux, how are you doing, man? It's been a long time since I saw you anywhere, really, but nice to at least see your name. Yeah, I really like this slate gray / blue main dial. I like the fact that they just have that pure, simple two-hander time display on the face of it. And you see how they minimized the pushers as well, right? With my hairy wrist, you might not even see the pushers when it's on the main face. But you flip it around, of course, there is the chronograph with that oversized seconds counter, and of course that sector, that fan-like scale, what would correspond to 6 o'clock for the 30 minutes totalizer, which of course just snaps back. The hand just snaps back when the 30-minute cycle is complete. I think it's a great watch. I think it's exciting to see the reverso with different kinds of complications, and not just dual face with that you can set to 2 different time zones with a day and night indicator. I don't know. I like the reverso either simple all the way, or a little bit more complicated. So that's why this watch appeals to me, even as I prefer the 1996 version. There's a little bit of a theme here with the blue dials, I guess, but I wanted to bring out one of my favorite pieces, kind of from the archive of my senses, of my mind. You guys remember the second episode of References and Auction Results was on Patek minute repeaters. So we did talk about this watch on the channel. I had never really talked about it and written up about it on my Instagram. This is the unique example they made in 2016 of the 2015 only watch of the 1516 in stainless steel. 1516 was in production between the years 1993 and 2011. And it was, in fact, at the time of its introduction, the most complicated Patek Philippe wristwatch. It combines a perpetual calendar with a retrograde date indicator, of course, also a leap year indicator and a moon phase indicator. That it combines with a tourbillon escapement and a minute repeater, which you can see also from the slider on the left flank of the case. Of course, the design of the case really harkens back to the kind of voluptuous lines of the 2499, the first generation of which were made by the famed case makers Émile Vichet. This is a watch that is very special already, but in this one-of-a-kind example, Patek went a little further. Of course, they already make only a handful versions of their complicated watches historically in stainless steel. But in this case, of course, since this is a chiming watch, it was an interesting experiment for Patek Philippe, which almost exclusively prefers to execute that complication in precious metals, of course, the 3 different shades of gold and platinum. They have gone a little bit further and made a blue enamel dial, which you can see from the inscription Emai here at 6 o'clock. Kind of a beautiful grained texture. Since the cutouts are a little more uneven on these enamel dials, they have also taken advantage of that to actually frame the aperture for the day, month, and leap year indicators in this trapezoid shape and in grain brushed rhodium plated white gold to match the rest of the dial furniture. The dial is simply signed tourbillon, which I think it's almost always the case with Patek Philippe tourbillon watches. Usually you would see a movement number here as well on the face of the watch, but since this is a unique example anyways, they decided to just skip that. And this watch is said to have been bought by Brad Pitt when it was sold by Philips in 2015 for 7.3 million Swiss francs at the time, which corresponded, I think, to about 7.25 million in US dollars at the time. I think that was the time when US dollars was more precious than Swiss francs, and things have, of course, changed since then. And then I went on a little bit of a Brad Pitt kick. I have featured some of his watches before. The reason I like Brad Pitt and his collection is, in a way, very similar to why I like Sly Stallone and his collection. To me, he always strikes me as a genuine collector, as a bona fide watch guy. He has been wearing all these watches that are now hype watches before it was cool, right? You can see him with a Nautilus on his wrist in the early 2000s when genuinely no one cared about it except some crazy Italian collectors. And here you see him with his ex, Angelina Jolie, during the filming of By the Sea, which is set in the French Riviera, but is actually framed in Malta. And he was wearing this Patek Philippe Ellipse d'Or during that movie, a white gold number with an integrated mesh style bracelet. This is a similar watch. It's you can say it's a blooper in a way, because it's not exactly period correct, right? The movie is technically set in the late 60s. And even though the ellipse is introduced in 1968 to Patek's catalog, I think Brad Pitt is wearing a later version. I'm not trying to be pedantic. I actually thought it was a great choice for that movie, because there's at least this rough correspondence between the style of the movie and this historical setting of the movie, the setting of the movie, and this particular watch, which is roughly a late 60s, 70s watch anyway. So it's not that far off. This is a reference 3548. Again, ostensibly something very similar to what Brad Pitt is wearing there. It remained in production in between 1976 to 1994. There are, of course, still ellipses in Patek's catalog today. The model celebrated its 50th anniversary in 2018. Currently, there's the 5738. There's one in platinum, there's one in pink gold, and there's also an example that I believe it's still in platinum. No, it's actually in white gold with this sort of engraved arabesque designs on the dial. Now, I don't, sometimes people say this about the reverso pieces, especially after the Grand Taille, because they kept growing and growing, and that the size of the watch doesn't really correspond to its style. I don't necessarily agree with that. Incidentally, that's exactly what I think about the Golden Ellipse. I think the current reference, the 5738, is a little too large for my liking. So I think, the 3748, something like this watch, is much more interesting to me, much more desirable and aspirational for me. What I really like about the dial, about the watch, is its dial. Now, the model is called Ellipse d'Or, or Golden Ellipse, because it is designed after that principle of the golden ratio or golden section, which is something, of course, lifted from ancient Greek culture. Sometimes it's also called the divine proportion. Incidentally, that's also kind of one of the design principles behind the reverso as well. But there's also the sense that is reflected in the fact that the goldenness of the watch is reflected in the fact of its dial material as well, which is in this case 18 karat gold. And it was first made by the dial maker Zinga for Patek Philippe through this special vacuum plating process that involves cobalt and 24 karat gold as well. So it's basically a blued gold dial, and I don't think they use the same process, but I think the most similar thing to this that you can find in the world of watches. It is what is in the catalog of Andes en Genève. You know, they have their trademark blued gold details that they sometimes use on the dials, otherwise just relegates to their oscillating weights. But you see here a jump hour piece with a blued gold dial that has on the main their unique magical lozenge decoration. Of course, a hobnail detail in that subdial that is actually for the minutes. There's Papa's Fent. And I think in a lot of their world timepieces, they have, you know, as you can see, they have blued gold dials at the center, or they might have something like this, which has both the blued gold decoration at the center of the dial, which actually depicts a pattern that you can find on many nice little items and trinkets you can get from Asprey. But there's also, I think, blued gold. Yes, right, the same detail and same texture on the back. Anyway, this is just a long-winded way of saying that the blue of this style is really special and really eye-catching in a way that many other blue dials just stop very they fall short of it. I mean, there are many similar designs to this watch, including Gérard Janta's White Shadow, which he made for Universal Genève, the recently resurrected brand. I have a video on that coming soon, so keep your eyes peeled and stay tuned. But I think this is just a very special model, and I know over the years they have produced it in many different configurations, many different permutations between the case material and the dial in terms of colors and in terms of layouts. But I think the combination of white gold and the blued gold dial is just unmatched when it comes to this particular design. That contrast makes the dial pop even more. And I figured, by the way, that today is Brad Pitt's birthday. I really didn't intend, to lead into it with two different Brad Pitt related posts, but it somehow happened. It wasn't even on my mind, but happy birthday, Brad Pitt. And next I wanted to cover one of my favorite watches of all time. You know, I come back to this all the time on this channel. It's like one of my burning regrets that I didn't get one of these pieces when they were around, 20, at most $25,000. That was an absolute bargain. Nowadays, I see them around $40,000 and even more. I'm sure at some point an opportunity will represent itself, but I really love the design of this piece. I really love the kind of innovation it brings to the horological space at the time it was released, which was 1986. There there weren't many tourbillon wristwatches to go around in the first place. At the end of the day, it's just such an important conjunction of aesthetics and horology that I thought it deserved some sort of spotlight. It's like a perfect example of Egyptomania. I know that was more of a trend in the 19th century, but somehow keeps coming back. That's simply a highfalutin name for an outsized enthusiasm for all things related to ancient Egypt. The design of the watch is inspired by a relief from an ancient Egyptian temple dedicated to the sun god. AP simply called the watch La Tourbillon Automatique, which once again meant something at the time, because this was in fact the first serially produced self-winding tourbillon wristwatch. The dial is beautifully engraved with these sun rays, which seemingly emanate from the tourbillon cage at 11 o'clock. It might not be perfectly visible here, but I will try to... Oh, this is the entire presentation, by the way. Look at that. And that's the booklet that kind of delves into the inspiration and some technical details about the piece as well. You see the signature of the brand is actually on the crystal. So they have done their best to not interrupt the design at all. So even though you see both the initials of the brands and the signature of the brands, none of which actually interrupt the dial, the tourbillon cage takes its prominent spot at 11 o'clock. And what you see through the aperture at 6 o'clock is actually the hammer-like oscillating weight, which may in itself be considered a tribute to the 19th century, I guess, because it's kind of akin to the self-winding mechanisms that Breguet introduced to the world of pocket watches. And it's a platinum iridium thing that, again, I think fits nicely into the whole design aesthetic of this timepiece. This was the first tourbillon cage to be fashioned entirely out of titanium, which makes the piece ultra lightweight as well as ultra thin. And of course, since it actually takes a lot of energy to move the tourbillon cage, lighter tourbillon cages are obviously more desirable because that makes them a little more efficient, a little more, a little less power hungry, let's put it this way. So that's actually something that's both, again, aesthetically and horologically desirable. Again, for the longest time, this was also the thinnest tourbillon ever ever designed, and that they achieve by having the base plate of the movement double as the case back, right? This is, you can see it in this picture, and that's why you see those jewels, those rubies protrude through the case back. So it's not just a design detail, even though I think the constellation-like appearance of the rubies through the case back does fit with the larger astral design aesthetic of the watch as well. And I like also, again, the fact that the crown is relegated to the back as well. It's for time setting only, and the watch, again, integrates to the leather strap very cohesively with those hooded lugs, and with the absence of the crown. It's just a very sleek aesthetic. Very thin watch. Again, I believe it's like 5.5 millimeters in thickness. And there were a few different variations, even though they were made all in extremely limited number. I think all in all, maybe 300 pieces. This is the most common version you would see, even though it's already quite rare. But there were also iterations with broader sun rays inlaid with mother of pearl, examples with integrated bracelets, examples which take that a little further, and even a platinum example. It's really an amazing watch, I think, both from a design standpoint and an horological standpoint, especially if you are interested in the history of horology and in also in the history of the tourbillon, especially as a wristwatch. Okay, so I wanted to see if this website finally opens, because I had problems opening it. I think that's still the case. So we talked about how Mohammed Zaman took Christie's to court over the recent Passion for Time sale. And there were a number of very interesting, from a horological standpoint, but also from kind of a provenance standpoint, watches. Marlon Brando's famous GMT Master that he wore for Apocalypse Now, or this one-of-a-kind Philippe Dufort in yellow gold, the Grande and Petite Sonnerie number one, and that was in fact the top lot, which sold for about 5.7 million, where Marlon Brando's GMT sold for about 5 million. And all of these watches are now basically impounded. Christie's told the buyers not to actually pay them since they can't collect the watches. So $43 million worth of these pieces are actually right now held at Christie's because of a civil complaint that Mohammed Zaman hired in Geneva. The auction took place on November 6th, and there was a hearing on December 11th in Geneva. And everyone was kind of very mum about it. So I kind of fished around to hear what happened. Couldn't find anything. Finally went back to Business Montre, which is the website that actually first broke the story, that first reported about the debacle. And it's just, it was just a whole mess. Unfortunately, Christie's managed to defer the hearing. So there was, to my understanding, there was no hearing on December 11. There might not be, to my understanding, a hearing on the situation. Maybe they will somehow come to terms, come to an understanding, come to a settlement outside of the court system. I don't know, but you guys remember that initially Christie's was very dismissive about it. Their official statement said basically, Mr. Zaman is regrettably blocking Christie's from releasing the watches to the successful buyers. We have taken immediate steps to challenge this interference with the sales process, and we're hoping for a swift resolution. We deeply regret the inconvenience caused to our valued clients pending the outcome. We're sorry that Mr. Zaman fails to recognize the record commercial success of the Passion for Time sale, which was the largest total achieved for a single owner watch collection on a public auction. And we were kind of puzzled about why, precisely for this reason, why Mohammed Zaman would actually take action, would actually file a civil complaint against Christie's. And my outsider's view of the subject, or my outsider's response to that question from a logical standpoint was to simply go by a watered down analogy, right? If I got this watch that I'm wearing on my wrist for 4, and if someone tells me, hey, the market is basically crashing, you could have sold this watch for 12 just a year ago, but now we can help you sell it for 10. And then I say, okay, take it, put it up on auction. Before the auction comes up, with a little bit of time left, some mysterious entity steps in as a third-party guarantor, says, hey, I can actually buy all these watches, guarantee the sale on every single lot, and in fact, I will pay even more than what the law estimates are. And when that happens, and you'll go into the auction 45 minutes after that, and everything sells for much more than you expect, and this watch that you were hoping to sell for 10 ends up selling for 30, and it's always the same paddle that gets raised for the most desirable lots and examples. I don't know. You might start asking a few questions. And apparently, Mr. Zaman did ask some questions. He felt something was out of order. He felt that there was something going on behind the scenes. But he could have also simply felt, what went down here, right? What did they do behind my back? Could I have sold these right now or at another time for better handling the sale on my own, or through some other kind of proxy whom I could actually trust? So I'm reading further from Rob Report's coverage of the subject. They're also saying it's pretty unclear what sparked Zaman to take action against Christie's. Watch Pro claims that there were irregularities at the opening of the Passion for Time auction concerning third-party guarantees that were considerably higher than pre-sale estimates in the public domain right up until the start of the sale. We talked about this in a lot of examples. This was by orders of magnitude, right? Think of the Marlon Brando GMT. That was a watch which had previously sold for almost $2 million. The pre-auction estimate was between 1 to 2 million Swiss francs. And then I think that was updated to 2.4 to 3.5 in Swiss francs. And it ended up selling for, it had an estimate of 1.1 million to 2.2 million in US dollars. That was revised to 4.3 million to 7.6 million right before the auctions started, after the third-party guarantor stepped in. And finally, it hammered at 5.3 million. Right, so a single investor reportedly made a reserve bid guaranteeing a minimum price for every watch in the sale. The guarantee was offered and accepted at a higher price than the original estimates, which then had to be updated before the sale. And the auction, as we mentioned before, was delayed for about 45 minutes, maybe up to an hour. An unknown bidder, who has been nicknamed Paddle 1013, appeared to be winning most of the watches for amounts at the lower ends of the new estimates. One example is the Brando Rolex, or the Brando GMT Master, which we talked about, which ended up hammering at 5.3 million. I don't exactly know how many watches this person won, but this was precisely the rumor I had heard and related to you after the sale. It was for most of the most desirable watches out of the whole curation. It was Paddle 1013, and that's not just a nickname, that's literally a person bidding with Paddle 1013, and that's the person who won apparently most of the most desirable pieces. Christie's response to this was, Christie's respects the confidentiality of our clients, and cannot comment on buyer identity. We do, however, wish to clarify that the speculation fueled by Mr. Zaman regarding the identity of the guarantor is simply incorrect. We don't know exactly what that speculation is, but basically we realized that Mohammed Zaman was suspecting some sort of collision between the auction house and the infamous paddle 1013. So, and as I mentioned, this is now unresolved. Someone decided to kick the can down the road. Maybe Christie's will be able to infinitely defer that hearing through their own legal tactics and strategies. I don't know. I will try to further report on this incident once I get to talk to more people and read up more about it. But as I mentioned, this was only one of the major horological or auction house related, really, debacles of late, and they were somehow both connected to the fall season in Geneva, with the Only Watch auction being also cancelled, again, by their declaration, simply postponed until next year. But since there were issues related to the transparency of how the funds were used that were raised through those charity auctions over the years, I think until they really release all sorts of financial details going back to perhaps the 9 preceding editions as well, most of the public will not be satisfied. So I don't know what happens to Only Watch from now on, but they have a lot of work to do, I think, before they can regain the trust of the public. And trust me, that happens. Maybe not in a direct way, but it does. If you remember how that situation unfolded, a lot of important collectors, especially Santa Laura, started writing about certain irregularities that they had observed about how Only Watch, or the Only project overall, operates, how they use the funds. Of course, Periscope being perhaps the only real investigative journalist that we have in the horological space, also dug deep into certain details and started publishing them on his stories. People started posting en masse to the Instagram posts of Only Watch itself. People started basically by that and also directly alerting the brands. And that's when the house of cards started tumbling down, right? And I think that is important to realize, right? It's not just the voice of the collectors on social media is important. It is important for it to reach a certain critical mass before it can matter at a certain level, but it only starts really mattering when it starts affecting the behavior or actions, rather, of larger stakeholders in an event like this, which are the brands, right? It was, I think it was de Bethune and Audemars Piguet first who pulled their watches. And once it seemed like that other brands might do something similar, I think it was basically a foregone conclusion that they had to basically take everything down and really revise the situation and come up with another strategy. So, I mean, kind of what, I don't know if you guys follow any other live stream platforms, but kind of like what was happening with Twitch and the new policy revisions that they came up with, relating largely to sexual content. And they started, like, trying to make it even more liberal and permissive when it comes to artistic depictions and whatever other kind of performative sexual content. And then they received suddenly all this backlash from both creators who are not doing sexual content and viewers who didn't think that's something that the platform is supposed to be promoting, since it has had its origin and still its backbone in gaming related content, and since it still in large part serves kids, I mean teenagers, right? So it's is it really appropriate to turn it into some sort of you know cam girl like situation? Anyway, that backlash mattered, and that backlash initiated certain things, but I think they didn't decide to reverse some of their policy revisions before they actually, or rather, they reverse those decisions when their advertisers start calling them, right? What is going on? Maybe we don't want to advertise with you if everything is going to become so sexual in terms of content. So I think it's important, it's a good lesson for us, this recent controversy around Only Watch, to realize how much we can actually affect things, how much we can actually affect change in the world of watches. But we also need allies in higher places. We also need to at least show the target of our criticism that it's going to matter at a financial level, right? That it's going to hurt their bottom line. And once they realize that, they just have to comply, because unfortunately that's the only thing they care about, right? And on one level, you might say, who can blame them, right? Rolex might be a foundation, but at the end of the day, these are all businesses, and their business is selling watches. So that is ultimately going to be their only value, simply to sell more. So I also wanted to talk a little bit about the 5 finalists of the Louis Vuitton watch prize, which is in a more, maybe pretentious way named Louis Vuitton Watch Prize for Independent Creatives. And I was kind of surprised by the selection of the 5 finalists. It was in a way already written in stone, so to speak, because we had seen the semifinalists, and most of the semifinalists were the usual suspects. Again, maybe it was simply my naivete or my misunderstanding. I really had thought that this was somehow an opportunity for emerging watchmakers to gain some funding, some recognition, and even get some mentoring at the La Fabrique du Temps facilities of Louis Vuitton to kind of jumpstart their projects. But it turns out that at the end of the day, the five finalists are pretty much all the usual suspects. In certain cases, even names and watchmakers that have been in the business for decades, even though they were perhaps not recognized in the right way. Again, this is not even so much a criticism, just a simple statement of facts. All I'm saying is that I thought that this was going to be something similar to François Bourgeon's Young Talent competition, where, at the end of the day, it comes with a grant, with a presentation, with a public recognition, and which helps the winner, the young watchmaker, to jumpstart their project. And it comes with a relatively hefty cash prize, about 50,000 Swiss francs, which allows the person to purchase watchmaking tools and otherwise finance the project. Well, it turns out this is ultimately, yes, Maldives, man, we are we are thinking at the same frequency. I really love when this happens. But I think Jean Arnaud and Louis Vuitton have something else in mind here. I think what they are trying to do, and I basically came upon this insight, you might say, when I was learning more about the Acrivia Louis Vuitton collaboration. You remember the chiming chronograph with the tourbillon escapements that they came up with. That was only 5 pieces, I think 425,000 Swiss francs at retail. A very interesting collaboration, a very shrewd way, I have to say, of putting Louis Vuitton at the center of the conversation about independent watchmakers. I said shrewd, you might call it sinister, because the whole attraction of independent watchmakers is in fact their relative independence from luxury groups. So in addition to reviving, in addition to, first of all, giving space, giving increased importance to La Fabrique du Temps in Louis Vuitton's watchmaking projects, in addition to therefore highlighting Michel Navas and Enrico Barbazzini. As you guys know, just in the last year, Jean Arnaud helped revive both Daniel Roth with subscription Tourbillon and Gerard Janta, the two brands that with a jump hour, retrograde minutes, minute repeater piece that also has a Mickey Mouse enamel dial, which was supposed to be sold at the OmniWatch. Anyways, both of these brands will have their whole lineup, at least a few different models. And it turns out that the collaboration with Recep Recepi, the Acrivia Louis Vuitton 5-piece collaboration was, I think it was a 10-piece collaboration. But there are going to be 5 collaborators, so 4 more independent watchmakers. My guess is, and these watchmakers are not yet announced, this competition is going to be like a farming system for that next watchmaker, because the conditions of the prize, or rather the what comes with the prize, is basically a year-long mentorship / residence at La Fabrique du Temps, as well as a prize of $150,000. So basically, whoever wins this prize is going to be the next collaborator with Louis Vuitton to create a watch that is at that same level as the Acrivia Louis Vuitton piece, which they called Chronographe à sonnerie, the chiming double-sided chronograph tourbillon watch with the chiming chronograph watch with the tourbillon regulator. That's just my guess. I haven't even asked anyone, but I think the story holds. I think the story makes sense. I think this is exactly what's going to happen. But, again, I was expecting something that supports young talent, unknown watchmakers that need a platform, that need some sort of encouragement and financial support. But it seems the aim of this competition is really to bring another independent watchmaker into the fold of Louis Vuitton, and therefore raise Louis Vuitton's profile within horology, rather than the other way around. Raoul Pagès, and his régulateur à détente. This is a watch with a détente escapement and a regulator dial layout. The split seconds chronograph by Peter Mambeda, which is a watch that we covered here. I think it's a great watch, which could have been greater, and is, again, a piece that more or less sells at the same price point as a 5370p Patek's split-second chronograph that they currently have in their catalog, so more than $250,000. The chronomètre artisan of Simon Brett, which was in fact kind of the hot topic leading into the GPHG, leading into the so-called Oscars of the world of watches. And Simon Brett won the Horological Revelation Prize. The watch itself was a nominee for Man's Watch of the Year. Since so many of the watches have won other and even more prestigious prizes from within that category, the best men's watch prize was technically not given in year 2023. From another perspective, you might say it was, in fact, given in a three-way tie, you might say, or rather a two-way tie, because the Ferdinand Berthoud chronomètre chapter 3 won basically the chronometer prize, and the Simon Brett won the Horological Revelation Prize. So they decided not to give anything beyond that. They didn't give a man's watch prize that was distinct from these two pieces. That is to say, Simon Brett and Ferdinand Berthoud. L'abeille mécanique, basically mechanical bee, this to me is the unknown quantity. I haven't had time to really look into it. But I think it is more of an automaton. But I found a video where he explains it. If it's not too long, maybe we can watch it. Okay, that's great. We can watch it. And while we watch it, I can take a quick break. Please hit the like button while you're at it. I would really appreciate that. Hey, Nate Doc, how are you doing, man? I think I was gone for a little too long, but I'm back now. We were talking about the finalists of Louis Vuitton's watch prize, and I was basically saying that I had expected it to be like a competition that François Paul does for young talents. So something to really give a jump start to a young watchmaker who doesn't have the resources, who doesn't have the recognition. But my theory now, after these 5 finalists have been revealed, is that the Louis Vuitton watch prize is basically a complicated, roundabout, and public way to select the next watchmaker that Louis Vuitton will collaborate with, in the same way that they did with Recep Recepi of Akrivia, with chronograph Sondry. Because, as I said, all the 4 out of the 5 finalists are usual suspects, and 3 of them are basically really hot wristwatches. So it's kind of a foregone conclusion, I guess. I was trying to understand the l'abeille mécanique, which means mechanical bee, and probably is the most original horological creation between the 5. Jean-Michel Flon is the name of the watchmaker. It basically is a mechanical bee that makes a revolution around the style every 12 hours with its sting indicating the time, which of course is not so precise a reading, but aesthetically it's an interesting object, and horologically, of course, the way you see the entire caliber on display is not bad. Again, it's not my cup of tea, but one thing I appreciated about the 5 finalists announced is that it wasn't just something that only focused on wristwatches. Again, that's mostly my thing as well, but I like when makers and brands focus on things like this desk calendar by Strela that takes on an idea that was first presented by Breguet and is still, by the way, realized by Breguet. The original piece had pocket watches. Now they have wristwatches. Breguet's original concept was that you would have a desk clock, which was presumably more precise and accurate, that would serve as a kind of charging station, a kind of charging dock for your pocket watch, right, where you would set it at the end of the day, and it would not only be fully recharged, fully wound when you are ready to pick it up, but it would also synchronize with that desk clock, and therefore would be adjusted, would have its errors corrected, so on and so forth. Andreas Strela takes it a little further, because in this case, the desk clock component is a full perpetual calendar. But the principle remains the same. You have a pocket watch, which you can remove and put into your pocket and use throughout the day. And you can set it on the Tisch calendar, desk calendar, whenever you wish, whether you are back on your desk working, or at the end of the day and it's on your nightstand. And it will both coordinate and synchronize with your pocket watch. It would also, of course, correct that watch basically, because it would once again coordinate with the desk clock. Andreas Strehler is, again, maybe not a well-known name in the same way that some of the younger independent watchmakers who are in vogue right now are, but he is someone who has been basically toiling away in silence, working in the shadows for the longest time, doing some very important work in conceiving and creating movements for anyone from Ashmoser and Company and to Maurice Lacroix. He made the ML 106 chronograph movement for Maurice Lacroix, which was a contemporary recreation, a pretty faithful reproduction actually of the Venus 175, the classical hand-wound chronograph movement from the Golden Age. He also created the Perpetual One for Moser, which is a very simplified, streamlined chronograph, simplified, streamlined perpetual calendar movement with a flash oversized date for Moser. He was also the designer of Opus 7 for Harry Winston's series. He also made movements for Chrono Swiss. So pretty decorated and pretty experienced watchmaker, actually, who has perhaps not been recognized by the mainstream in the way he deserved so far. So I'm rooting for him, even though it's basically a foregone conclusion that one of the wristwatches will win the competition. I'm really expecting it to be Simon Brett. I really think the next watch will be something probably less complicated and possibly time only. But we'll see. We'll see. It might. I would be happy to be surprised, to put it in another way. All right, so we are back to an auction coverage, actually. Ineichen is a Swiss auction house based in Zurich, and they have ongoing sales, kind of like consignments that are given to them by collectors. And every so often they put live events as well. They had a great auction in the spring season where they honored Konstantin Chaikin's work in, I think there was the first time that his work was at the center of such attention. I don't think it happened with a Russian watchmaker before. They also curate auctions around a certain theme. It can be a complication, it can be a particular genre, even price point. In November, they had an auction for watches under 10,000 Swiss francs. They had auctions for calendar watches. They had auctions for sports watches. At some point, they even had an auction that was called German-speaking watches, kind of bringing together watches from makers from Germany, from Austria, but also from German-speaking parts of Switzerland as well. So a lot of fun, a lot of interesting pieces. And their calling card is that they're a disruptor. So they have a lot of these auctions that are not even live, that are online only, and they don't have buyer's premium. So what you see is what you get. Wherever the watch hammers is exactly the amount you will pay. Of course, tax and other customs related duties are not included with that price. You guys know the rules. I'm not supported or sponsored by any of these auction houses, so I'm just going to speak my mind as always. And I don't necessarily endorse them either. I sent the link in the chat, so if you want to direct my attention to any particular watch, there are about 50 lots that I will try to go to get. I will try to go through them all. I might not get to it, so considering that, it might be interesting for you to just send in a lot number with a super chat, and I would be more than happy to prioritize that, bring it up, and talk about it before I do anything else. As you can see, there are a lot of interesting pieces, some fascinating Moses, Parmigiani Fleurier, Romain Gauthier, Vienna Alter, a lot of Daniel Roth that we just passed by, De Bethune, Samja Janta, and even François Paul Jean and Luti as well. I'll start perhaps with a piece that I put on my thumbnail. This is a Laurent Ferrier piece. It's the Gallet Origin. I've mentioned before that I'm a big fan of Laurent Ferrier. I really like their designs. I think I like practically everything on their catalog except that sports watch, which to me looks right out of the 70s and in the worst way possible. So I'm not a fan of the Grand Sport or the Sport, the integrated bracelets design that they have, but everything else I really, really love. The Gallet Sucre is probably my favorite, but I also like this classic shape. It basically means pebble, and the idea is that the contours of these cases are really designed in a way to invoke the ways in which nature works on inanimate objects, like water smooths down a pebble that you might come by the shore. So I really like that idea. And you guys know that I love a pink dial, salmon dial specifically. This is a two-tone salmon dial, sector dial that Laurent Ferrier made for Andrea Concato, which is a jeweler from Verona, Italy. Verona, I think, is mostly known because it's well, in our parts of the world anyways, in this part of the world, Verona is mostly known because it's the setting of Romeo and Juliet. But I guess now they have a 10-piece limited edition from Laurent Ferrier, which looks extremely handsome. And it is also double signed in this very subtle way right over the subdial for seconds, which is at 6 o'clock. Arabic numerals for the rest of the quarters, kind of a sector dial design for the rest. I really like the oversized crown and the so-called assegai set of hands really grew on me. I was really put off by them when I first saw it, but now I find them really unique and interesting. I really like this hand wound movements as well, both in terms of the architecture and also in terms of the finish. I do have a small bone to pick, I guess, in the sense that I find it a little bit of a strong contrast, a little bit of a juxtaposition that has a little too much friction for me, because to me the dial screams classical, conservative, vintage, throwback, but the movement in terms of its finishing, I think, is a little too contemporary, right? I don't mind the frosted finish, but I wish they used, something like, gilt or even pink gilt frosting in a way that would perhaps speak to the dial as well. So I wish that was the case, but then again, that is just simply a small bone to pick. I'm just nitpicking. The watch is otherwise very interesting. I like the various shades of salmon on the dial. I really like that evocation of a classic sector dial that even has a kind of sun ray or sun-like layout in terms of the indices, in terms of the index markers. I love the hand-wound movements that has a free-sprung balance. And again, I even like the finishing of the movement as well. It just feels to me a little bit discordant when you put two and two together, when you look at the face of the watch and the movement of the watch. It is in stainless steel, and it is part of a 10-piece limited run that was made by Laurent Ferrier for their Verona-based dealer, Andrea Concato, whose signature is also on the dial. And it's like a tritone even, right? Because there is kind of a very soft salmon tone at the center of the dial, kind of a pink gilt tone for the second subdial, and then you have something more of a copper tone for the radially brushed hour track as well, railway track for the minutes, of course the heat blued hands. Very elegant piece. It is currently being bid at 25,350 in US dollars, with about 3 days left on the clock. Hey, Gandog, nice to see you, man. It's good to see you too. Thank you for being here. I want to bring up next one of the watches that I've always liked. This is Urban Jurgensen triple calendar piece. Aesthetically speaking, it's very similar to what was apparently the Grail watch of Kari Voutilainen, the Urban Jurgensen perpetual calendar, which he bought for himself as a gift for his 50th birthday. But this is, of course, triple dates combined with a chronograph based on a zenith movement. The Zenith El Primero caliber 410, which combines their high beats, column wheel, self-winding chronograph movement with a triple calendar module and a moon phase indicator. In this case, of course, you get the beautiful aesthetics of an Urban Jurgensen watch, stepped bezels, highly polished and slightly domed teardrop lugs. All of this on an 18 karat yellow gold case, 40 millimeters in diameter. You have a lovely silver dial that is engine turned by hand with various guilloche patterns with different styles of guilloche decorations. Of course, Breguet styled hands in this case, which are less interruptive or intrusive considering the number of subdials you have. You have the running seconds at 9 o'clock, a 30-minute totalizer at 3 o'clock, and a 12-hour counter at 6 o'clock, which encircles the aperture of for the moon phase indicator. Right above the running seconds, you have a wicket for the day of the week. Above the 30-minute totalizer, you have the month, and then at 4:30, between 4 and 5 o'clock, you have a date window, which gives you a triple date, which gives you a triple calendar in combination with a self-winding chronograph. Pardon me. I think this is a very beautiful and fascinating piece for the average collector. But just so you know, you can find some very interesting examples of Zenith's versions of that caliber 410, a triple calendar chronograph, literally for a fraction, and I really mean a small fraction of this price, because the starting bid was $34,550, but the current bid is already more than $56,000, $56,450, easily a tenth of that for even less. You can find Zenith's version of this piece. Yes, in stainless steel. Yes, perhaps not bearing the hallmarks of the same classical dress watch aesthetics, but still a very interesting and compelling watch. Let me see if I can, if I can actually find a piece. I don't know if there's anything active that is going on that I can show you. Yeah, I've come up with so many different examples of this that were just recently sold, and for less than $5,000 in each case. But the watch basically looks like this. And you can see, just looking at the dial layouts, you can see that it's the same movement. But this is a beautiful watch. That was lot 11. We had looked at lot 9 before, which was a limited edition version of Laurent Ferrier Classic, a 40 millimeter with a tritone silver dial. I think, yeah, why don't we look at these different Aubin Jorgensen watches? There's a Big 8 Japan edition. As you guys know, Aubin Jorgensen was acquired by an ownership group led by none other than Kari Voutilainen himself. And it seems like a great fit because Kari cut his teeth really as being part of that revival of Aubin Jorgensen with Derek Pratt as basically the head watchmaker, and with a partnership that included Baumgartner and Grott as well. So it seems like an interesting time to look at the brands. But the reason I brought up also Kari Voutilainen's involvement with the brand now is because how you can see the way that the aesthetics of this piece, these pieces, are somehow reflected in Kari Voutilainen's own watches, not in the sense that it is a one-on-one copy, but you can see how the design details come up also in Kari Voutilainen's own pieces. Big 8 is kind of an oversized version of their dress watch. Don't get scared when I say oversized in this case, because this is actually 40 millimeters. This Japanese edition model has a stainless steel case with beautiful teardrop lugs. Again, an exhibition case back, which gives full view to caliber 1160 with that stunning 21 carats pink gold rotor that is itself guilloche decorated with a barley corn motif, one of 20 pieces. Applied Breguet numerals in pink gold. Again, you have that stepped bezel aesthetic for the round case. And the hands are in the observatory style with heat blued stainless steel stamps and hand finished pink gold details as well. An oversized subdial for seconds at 6 o'clock completes the picture. Very elegant, sleek dress watch with a modernized aesthetic. This is the Big 8 in stainless steel for a Japan limited edition, one of only 20 pieces. I think the dial from the pictures looks like very much like an off-white, silver-like color. But if you have seen from this video, it has a very nice grained texture and has even kind of a tint of champagne in it. So it's very beautiful. Also quite simple. Exactly what people are looking for in a lot of high horological dress watches these days. So lot 10 has already attracted seemingly quite a bit of interest, more than a dozen bids, with bidding currently standing at around 25,350 in US dollars. Please hit the like button, by the way. That really helps, and I need it desperately. As always, that really, really helps me push the channel forward. Hey, Sam. Bonsoir. It's nice to see you as well. Share the link with friends, other collectors, other watch enthusiasts. It really, really yeah, I would be really grateful if you could just share the link. There are about 2 weeks left to the end of the year. I'm pushing 2,000 on both Instagram and YouTube, but I'm also far away in terms of my usual growth numbers. I don't think I will catch up unless you give me an extra push, which I would really, really appreciate. But otherwise, of course, as you guys know, your support and presence is more than enough for me. If you want to support the channel in other ways, if you want to contribute more, of course, there are options that are presented in the video description. You can always become a member of the channel as well, or simply send your questions and comments as super chats, as super stickers, or leave super thanks to the videos. By the way, just leaving a normal comment, positive or negative, argumentative, or just as an inquiry, even that helps. Actually, I think comments help perhaps as much, if not more, than likes in terms of the algorithm. So that'd be great if you could do that, if you could help me with that as well once the video goes up, which is exactly when I end the live stream. There's another dress watch by Owen Jurgensen on lot 11. This is a smaller piece at 37 millimeters, so in a way it's a little more classical, but it's also somewhat interrupted by that date window at 6 o'clock. It might be just me. I just detest that stuff. So for you, you might not perceive it in the same way. You might not be put off as much by it. Perhaps you're more attracted by the diminutive size of the piece. This time we have a yellow gold case, classic guilloche dial with like a fish scale pattern for the center and a fine basket weave for the subdial for seconds. Every single sector of the dial, as you could see, is very finely framed by a kind of fluting or coin edging. The Roman numerals actually have that tint of blue, which matches really nicely with the heat blued stainless steel details. Of course, in usual Ineichen fashion, we will never know because the heading says pink gold, the pictures say pink gold, the description says yellow gold, so who knows? The pictures kind of make it look like it is I think it's pink gold because this triple calendar chronograph is a yellow gold case. And you can see that's a different shade than this, but it's always hard to tell since every brand kind of has its own alloy. But anyway, this is something that is done with Ineichen in every single auction, and they have at least 2-3 lots like this. Extremely unprofessional for an auction house that just celebrated 50 years of institutional existence. I don't know, hire another intern who can go over these details before they go live. How can you not get the case material right? A lot of times they also don't have the exact reference numbers and other details for the titles of the lots. They almost never have a lot essay. The condition report is less than 10 words in total. So at some point, not charging buyer's premium stops being an incentive, if you know what I mean, right? Because the buyer's premiums can be excessive, right? Can be off-putting, but they are charged by auction houses to facilitate all the infrastructure, all the work, all the research, all the writing, all the presentation that goes into making an auction. And you're already eliminating a lot of that by holding most of your auctions only online. That doesn't mean you can get away with not having lot essays, sparse condition reports. That doesn't mean you can get away with not even getting right what the case material is, leaving someone who looks at your website, who intends to lodge a bid in doubt, having to, write or even call. Maybe they are great communicators on the phone. I don't know. Maybe they immediately answer to emails. I don't care, right? You prepare a catalog and actually put some work into it. It doesn't matter if you don't charge buyer's premiums. And if that's what you provide every single time without charging buyer's premium, start charging a buyer's premium and hire a couple more people who will actually get things right. Embarrassing. Okay, I got carried away a little bit and forgot to mention what this piece is being bid at. This is lot 12 for an Owen Jorgensen 37 millimeter dress watch, time and date, with a beautiful guilloche dial. And it is currently being bid at 26,500 in US dollars. I'm very close, Sam. Please do help me to reach 2,000. I mean, I'm close yet so far, right? I almost need 80 more. And at my current rates, I don't know if I can reach that before the end of the year. So I do need a little bit of an extra push. Lot 8. This is indeed my favorite piece in the Laurent Ferrier catalog, the Galet Square. To me, it has the kind of elegance, but also masculinity that some of the, dressier, flashier Panerai pieces of late aspire to, but don't quite get right. To me, this seems like a very modern take on the classic cushion-shaped original Rolex Oyster case, which were, of course, cases supplied by Rolex to Officina Panerai to make those mythical dive watches. I love this ink blue dial with that vertical brushed grain finish. Once again, you have that assegai hands, which are proprietary and pretty specific to Laurent Ferrier. I like that they're so distinctive, and they actually match beautifully with these applied spear-like indices for the hour markers, small seconds at 6 o'clock. A nice little video here that gives you a feeling of the watch. I like this micro rotor movement even more. The Geneva stripes and the anglage is great, of course, but what I really love is the natural escapement, which is, of course, influenced by, once again, Breguet's original conception, his original design. I love the snail decoration on the pink gold micro rotor, and also the hand finished bridge that sets it in place. It's a beautifully high polished stainless steel case. I think it's 41 millimeters on paper, but wears beautifully. It's, I think it's around 11 millimeters thick. So it's, it's not, actually, it sits quite nicely on the wrist. So, and this, again, the case is just like the origin, very rounded and smooth in terms of its lines. Again, has that oversized kind of onion style crown, and in this case, teardrop lugs, which somehow adds another dimension to the design. I really love this. I mean, this is one of the watches that I want to eventually get. Beautiful wooden presentation box as well. Clearly comes with papers as well as some additional documentation. And this listing actually has some details and lot essay, so I guess good on them. At least some at least some of the lots have a lot essay, which maybe if they charge like a 5% buyer's premium, all the lots will. Who knows? But joking aside, it's a great incentive if you know what you're talking about, if you know what you are looking for. It's a good opportunity for people like us. But on the other hand, from another perspective, they should really be a little more systematic, a little more methodical, in a way that behooves, an institution that just celebrated 50 years. So it's, it is what it is. This piece at lot 8, which is a Laurent Ferrier Galet Square with the micro rotor movement, natural escapement, rhodium plated bridges, Geneva stripes decoration, full gold micro rotor with that beautiful snailed detail, silicon escapement with double direct impulse, and that's black polished balanced cock, as well as the rotor bridge, which is hand finished and very elegant as well, also black polished. I think the movement is a delight to look at and quite interesting horologically. 2 full 3 hours of power reserve as well, which is not bad at all. I want to talk next about this Benzinger watch, the Gap 1, which is a pièce unique or a one-of-a-kind example. When these watches first came out, they were at the center of some controversy, and I think you might say a rightful complaint or criticism, especially by Roger Smith. And I think if you look at it carefully, you can see why. Because the design of the watch save the absence of the power reserve indicator at 12 o'clock, and the reversed places of the pointer dates and the seconds dial is quite derivative of the George Daniels anniversary. And in the original way that the Gap 1 was announced, of course, this similarity was even more stark, even more in your face. Let me pull that up for you. Benzinger, by the way, is someone who specializes in engine turning in a way, I guess, a very similar trajectory as an artisan to Kari Vuitton, perhaps. And he has, over the years, collaborated with a number of different makers and brands, and has ennobled watches, small and big, watches that were, very simple and affordable, and others that are also quite complex, right? He, for example, with Grieb, he has collaborated on building this piece that was called the Blue Danube, if I'm not mistaken, that was that basically took a vintage Patek Philippe pocket watch movements with a I think it was I want to say it was a chronograph and a chiming watch, I think. Yes, it was a split-second chronograph with a minute repeater. based on a hand-wound movement made by Patek Philippe for Tiffany and Company, this watch. I mean, fascinating stuff. He also operated under the brand Jäger Benzinger, once again, working on vintage or otherwise rather generic and modified movements to make accessible watches. He made dials for Christian van der Klauw, but this particular piece, I believe, is the one that gave most attention, and attention that also came with a certain kind of scrutiny, because again, as I mentioned, the design is quite derivative, at least in its original presentation, of George Daniels's anniversary watch, as you can see here. But of course, since every single piece, I mean, if you look at this, right, it kind of looks like an homage to the platinum, to a platinum example of the anniversary, right? When you look at the dial, at least. But more recently, he basically started making a lot of different pieces, especially these particular examples with Arabic numerals rather than Romans, that I think put the whole design in a different light, because the placement of the crown and the correctors, just the styling of the case with its angular lugs, and really its thickness and heft, I think give the watch a very, very different feel to begin with. It is quite an artisanal watch. It has all sorts of hand engraved and hand finished details, both on the engine turn dial and the skeletonized movements. It has a very respectable 100-meter water resistance, 10-bar depth rating. It's a great stainless steel watch with a movement exclusively designed for it by Habring, by Richard Habring, which is what gives the watch its name, GAP, the German-Austrian project, GAP 1 specifically, which I guess comes with the implication that they will continue to collaborate in the future. That is to say, Jochen Benzinger and Richard Habring are going to actually collaborate. I don't know if that will be in the form of more unique watches under Benzinger's brands, or perhaps dials that Benzinger makes and decorates by hand for Habring. I think both options sound fine to me. I would love to see more of that. All of this goes to say that even though the dial layout closely resembles George Daniels' anniversary watch, and even though the original presentation was in a styling that was almost a one-to-one correspondence to that watch, I think the more unique examples start coming out, the more compelling that this watch becomes. I think the the wait time, the lead time is not excessively long. I think it's probably like 6 months when you order, and on the case back, as you can see, it says Unicate, so basically unique. Examples, everything that they make is open for customization, and you can decide anything from dial color, the kinds of decorations, what you want to have on the hour track in terms of indices, so on and so forth. So you can let your imagination run wild. And I think the price point is also quite compelling, because at the end of the day, I think you are still working with you're still working with something around $12, $13. So it's pretty interesting, I think pretty compelling for a watch that has this level of hand finished detail, its own unique movements. And something that is so open to customization and personalization. I think having something under the 15K price point is an interesting proposition. The thickness, I assume, will be a problem for many, but the overall dimensions of the watch are really not that bad. The lug to lug length of the watch is 44 millimeters. It's a 39 millimeter diameter case. And the thickness is 11.5. So not prohibitive, but somehow the design and 39 millimeter diameter somehow makes it look perhaps thicker than it already is. This particular example has a green dial with gilt hands, and actually it is being bid at right now at 16,700 US dollars, which I guess shows you how much people would be willing to pay when they don't want to wait. The dial is crafted out of solid silver. It's in dark green, and the hour track is actually black PVD coated, and so are the scales for the dates and small seconds as well. The hands are stainless steel but gold plated. I think ultimately the highlight of the watch is its movements, both in terms of architecture and decoration. It's a fantastic, fantastic piece. This was lot '05 for a Benzinga Gap 1 dark green, one-of-a-kind example that obviously is untouched, as new, being auctioned here off to the highest bidder, and currently that bid stands at 16,700 with about 3 days to go. I was talking about how Ineichen had organized earlier this year an auction to honor Konstantin Chaikin, and here's an example of his watches. This is his collaboration with Louis Erard. Louis Erard is, I think, a very interesting kind of emergent, independent, that is accessible, that has interesting collaborations, usually in the form of limited editions, and that has also made the regulator dial layout their own. And here they combine that approach, that aesthetic, with Konstantin Chaikin's implementation of the goggly-eyed clocks into the wristwatch form. His famous wrist monster series that was inaugurated by the introduction of his Joker watch at the Basel Fair. I've talked about how that was just an opportune occasion where stars have aligned, where an incredibly talented and very innovative watchmaker just got very lucky and became really popular with a watch that he didn't really intend to foreground in this way. And I can hardly blame him for going after it, because the limited edition that he introduced there almost immediately sold out, and the rest was history, so to speak. Earlier this year, he collaborated for this Time Eater set or series with Louis Erard. And in this case, you have two watches that are completely new, that are unworn, stainless steel cases of 39 and 42 millimeters. I think the two-piece set was only 28 examples, if I'm not mistaken. I believe the larger watch has the green chapter ring and the smaller one the purple. It's kind of a cyclops creature with a single eye that is the hours, and the centrally deployed minute hands indicates the minutes along the perimeter of the dial. And at 6 o'clock with this gear, there's kind of kind of an animation of seconds, because I don't think they really allow some real indication with that mechanism. Here's a smaller version, the 39 millimeter version. Both are complemented with these textured leather straps with matching accents, at least in the form of a double end stitching there. They're exhibition case backs, which show you the Selita SW266-1 self-winding movements. That is pretty ordinary for Louis Erard for their regulator dial pieces. As I mentioned, the two-piece set, I think, was 28 sets. There were, I believe, 178 examples of each watch. And this is the presentation box for the two-piece set. And apparently, and this is not really pictured, but let's see if it's in the video. If it's in the video, I think will serve better than my description. But I think this particular lot, which includes both watches and the original presentation sets, actually has a hand-drawn sketch by Konstantin Chaikin for the concept as well. So quite unique in the form of these time eaters, at least. Unfortunately, that's not photographed or presented in some way, so we can't say much about that. But this is lot 6 for the Louis Erard Konstantin Chaikin collaboration from earlier this year, a two-piece set of the time eaters in 42 millimeters stainless steel with purple details, and 39 millimeters in stainless steel with green accents. Currently, the bidding stands at 12,100 with about 3 days to go. I'm covering the Independents Part 2 auction by Ineichen. It's like a Christmas edition for them. They had a live auction that focused on independents, I believe. These are additional 50 lots. The auction is going to end at the end of the month. Sorry, at the end of the week, I meant. And there are many interesting watches. We looked at a few Urban Jorgensen pieces, a couple of Laurent Ferrier, just looked at Konstantin Chaikin, Louis Erard collaboration. Let's look at one of my favorites. This is Chapek or Chapek Company, Quai de Berg. Quai de Berg is their hand-wound dress watch. Speaking of watch hands or handsets that I don't like, and that in this case, that I didn't like initially, and that in this case didn't grow on me either, is this Fleur de Lis handset that this particular watch has. Thankfully, Quai de Berg has so many different variations that you're not stuck with this handset if you actually like the piece. For me, it's like the cathedral hands. They're just too, pardon me, they're just antiquated. They just belong to such a different era. I don't want to see them on a new wristwatch in the 21st century, but that's just me. Otherwise, the watch is quite cool, has these two subdials that are distinctly located in the lower half of the dial, one at 4:30, the other at 7:30, for power reserve and days of the week, and the seconds respectively. The dial is incredible in person. I will try to bring it up because I had because I have a short where I tried on an example of this piece, which to me was much more attractive. This is the smaller version, by the way. Let's see if I can quickly. Yes, and this is a similar color, but not exactly the same, because I believe the model on the auction is sapphire blue, and the one I tried is aqua blue. And yes, I much prefer this handset, and even the Arabic numeral, the single Arabic numeral, at 12 o'clock, to that somewhat outdated aesthetic that includes Roman numerals and fleur de lis hands. The small version of Quai de Berg is I want to say 38.5 millimeters, as opposed to the larger version, which is 42.5. It's a flanqué enamel dial. So basically, it's a dial that combines the techniques of engine turning, transparent enamel, as well as traditional enamel decoration with Chapek's exclusive ricochet pattern, which has this beautiful point between the subdials where it's like an optical illusion, very captivating. Anyway, the aqua blue was a little softer. This is the sapphire blue, which has this sort of inky shade. A beautiful two-tone blue, as you can see, in its contrast with the subdials as well. And this is the movement, which I believe more recently was updated. And I want to say that upgrades is both aesthetic and technical. It's still a twin barrel hand wound movement that beats at 3 hertz, so 21,600 semi oscillations per hour, and has a whole week of power reserve when it's fully wound. And which has that unique indicator, as you have seen on the subdial, which allows you to track the days of the week as it unwinds. You know, if you wind it fully on Sunday, you can also use it as an indicator for the weekdays as well, which is kind of neat. But of course, this particular piece has the older version of the movements, which again is not so much in the form of futures. It's slightly aesthetic, but the new balance wheel basically futures weights for variable inertia, and the hairspring has a Breguet terminal curve in the new one, in the new movement, which is SHX1. It's called SHX1. And it was a movement that was designed for Čepek by Konod, which is a specialist movement maker, which was founded by Jean-François Mojon. You will know Konod for actually developing some complications for Hermès. Hermès's recent world timer, Le Temps Voyageur, was made basically in a collaboration with Jean-François Mojon, even though the self-winding core of the movements is Hermès's proprietary, made by Vaucher. You know, the movement that is named after Hermès's year of foundation, H1837, and that is that powers the H08, their sports watch. Anyway, sorry for that digression. Sometimes I get carried away with these things, as you guys know. But this example of Chapek Kedebergs, their hand-wound dress watch with a full week of power reserve at full crank, with a sapphire blue flanquet dial and the smaller 38.5 millimeter case, is currently being bid at $17,850 at lot 19 with about 3 days to go. I have about 40 more minutes left. So if you have any questions, if you have any requests in terms of what you want to be covered, anything watch related really, but specifically any watches from this auction, please feel free to send in the lot number with a super chat, and I would be more than happy to delve deeper into that watch for you. If you have recognized that they have removed the usual buy it now option from these pieces, I kind of like that, because instead of having very high pre-auction estimates, I think it's much wiser to start with reasonable starting prices, have a reserve price point, and then let the markets, let the bidders decide the ceiling. I think that was wise of them. There's a lovely Armin Strom watch at lot 16. This is the Gravity Equal Force Ultimates Sapphire. The sapphire part refers to the dial, of course, as you can see, which has a main sapphire component, but also kind of a smoked sapphire overlapping small seconds dial off center at around 730. The movement plate is engine turns by Kari Vuottilainen's workshop. It has these characteristic, but also somewhat futuristic, three-finger open-worked bridge layout with an off-center dial, which is obviously very classically inspired, but also quite unique and distinctive of Armin Strom. Here's a look at the self-winding movement from the back. The piece is made in stainless steel and is 41 millimeters in diameter. And just so you know, this is a micro rotor movement, right? So you can see the rotor here. Better, in fact, from the dial side of the watch than the other way around. and that's the mainspring barrel. This is lot 16 for an Armstrong Gravity Equal Force Ultimate Sapphire. With about 3 days to go, the piece is currently being bid at $27,650 in US dollars. I need to take a very short break, but I don't want to leave you without a watch to look at. So let's kind of jumpstart our next, which is a De Vuitton DB15 perpetual calendar. I'll be right back. All right, we are back. We're looking at watch from De Vuitton. This is the perpetual calendar version of DB15 with their rather unique display of the moon phase. Which is spherical and is made out of platinum, and I believe in this case blued stainless steel. The case here is high polished 18 karat white gold with those ogival or bullets like lugs, 43 millimeters, so a rather oversized case. Should wear quite large for that reason, because once again, not every single De Vuitton model has those floating lugs system, which has a way of letting these watches sit really close to your wrist and wear much smaller than what that measurement might indicate. Of course, the dial has beautiful blue details, which also match nicely with the background, with the backdrop of the moon phase indicator as well. One of the stars in that constellation also serves as a very discrete leap year indicator, as you probably have paid attention to. It's like a porthole like opening within that constellation. There's a pointer date at 6 o'clock and two apertures at 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock, respectively, for the day of the week and the month. The numbers are painted Romans that, again, fit that theme or detail of the blue accent, and so do the blued hands, which are very nicely curved to fit the unique details and design of the dial. The DB15 perpetual calendar was launched in 2004, just 2 years after the founding of the brand, which was at the time a collaboration between the French watchmaker Denis Flageolet, who still remains with the brand as the mastermind, and the Italian watch dealer David Zanetta. The caliber DB 2004, named after that year, of course, features a 3-spoke titanium balance with platinum ogival weights, which again kind of is replicated on the lugs as well, as you see. The moon phase is very precise, and I think only shifts for about 1 day in every 122 years, which of course is de rigueur for a perpetual calendar, but it's not always the case, so still something to be commended. And I think this beautifully crafted stainless steel bridge also is one of the highlights of the movement as well. Platinum weights, titanium balance, stainless steel bridge. Just a very unique and beautiful movement architecture. That was lot 13 for a De Bethune DB15 perpetual calendar with 3 days to go. This piece is currently being bid at $87,500 in US dollars. It is housed in a 43 millimeter white gold case, all in high polish. Another interesting piece, you're looking at the Langenhaine Georg, which was at the time, I think, limited edition. Langenhaine is a Saxonian watchmaker which had Mako Lang as their primary mastermind. He has since left the brand, but many of the movements and watches that he designed remain with them. This particular piece features a rectangular case in 18 carats pink gold. The triple lugs. And an onion-shaped crown as well. Beautiful white enamel dial with black enamel painted Arabic numerals, a sunken oversized subdial for the seconds, Louis X style hands, which even in this sort of design, I just can't take. But hey, I guess it's a theme. Railway track for the minutes. And a heat-blued stainless steel hand for the seconds at 6 o'clock. The movement, to me, is the real highlight of this watch. which, by the way, seems to arrive in a great condition and as a full set. I mean, also even from the side, just the design of the case is incredible. The design and the decoration, I should say. And here's the movements. Which is just incredible. Beautiful hand-wound movements that is designed not only for the shape of the case, but really built as an architecture to highlight the beauty and singularity of that case. Completely open worked with a frosted gilt finish, beautiful mirror polished bars, a double traversing balance bridge, a solarized crown wheel, double solarized ratchet wheel, all the heat blued screws, the engraved inscriptions. Amazing piece. The case's dimensions are 40 by 32 by 9.4 millimeters, so 9.4 millimeters thick. This is lot 27 at Langen Heine Georg. Only the 85th to have been produced. The piece had a starting bid of $23,050. The current bid, however, stands at $38,000 with about 3 days to go. I have about 15 minutes, so maybe I will just focus on these 4 Daniel Roth pieces and just finish those. You know, I love you all and I appreciate your support and presence. So if you haven't yet hit the like button, please do so. That really helps. If you want to support the channel, you know how, but the links are there in the description. And of course, you can always become a member or send in a super chat or super sticker. And when the live show ends, if you want to leave a comment, you can also add to it a super thanks as well. But at any rate, just hitting the like, leaving a comment after the live stream is done, all of that helps. Spreading the word, sharing the link with your friends, other enthusiasts and collectors is also a great help because, again, I'm on the verge of crossing over, getting to more than 2,000 subscribers, more than 2,000 followers on Instagram. So the more you share, the more it helps me. Let's get back to The auction, lot 32. This is the Danny Roth Masters chronograph with blue dial. That's Gadron, the vertical striped guilloche is quite distinctive and definitive of the brand. This is a modern self-winding chronograph that comes from the more commercialized era of the brand, based on Zenith El Primero caliber 400, which, as the name should tell you, was one of the first, if not the first, self-winding chronograph movements to have been designed. Stainless steel, unique double ellipse or ellipso-curvex case. There are also very small luminous pips behind each Roman numeral marker. Danny Roth watches have beautiful dials, even in this commercialized era. Not every single one of them has an exhibition case back, but these chronographs do. And again, the movements are decently finished, even though it is nothing to write home about. And again, as the dial layout tells you as much, this is a Zenith El Primero caliber 300, so a 400, which is DR 500 here, 3-register chronograph with a date indicator at 4:30. I believe this is a naked watch. It does come with a generic leather strap, I believe, but the right buckle, seemingly. Maybe it's also a generic buckle, but it kind of, it's not signed properly, but its shape does remind me of a Daniel Roth buckle. So I will withhold judgment on that. But the watch is otherwise quite interesting. And the current bidding stands at 12,700 with 3 days to go. Unfortunately, with the revival of the brand and with the increased attention on it, these watches have started becoming quite expensive. I think still worth the money, under $15,000. I would not want to pay more than $12K for the standard chronograph. For the self-winding version, your mileage may vary. It's not the best time to buy Daniel Roth, again, because the brand is revived now. And I think that might remain the case for quite some time. So we'll see how that will unfold over the next months and years. I wanted to also take a look kind of working our way back. The Papillon, the jump hour piece, was basically the last model, the last design that Daniel Roth was closely involved in. When he had sold the brand already to the Hourglass, but before it was sold to Bulgari. This piece was meant to celebrate the 10th anniversary of Daniel Roth's brand, so released in 1998. 110 examples in pink gold. The jump hour is displayed where you would have 12 o'clock traditionally. Centrally, you have an oversized second subdial, and you have this arrow-like indicator for the minutes, which has in fact two arrows. So it's not a retrograde indicator, but basically when one finishes its revolution, of course it starts, the other one starts its revolution at 0. The minutes track, the minutes sector, is in the form of an upward facing crescent in a sunken lower part of the dial. And there are beautiful guilloche decorations in a gray tone that frame the other silver details, including that minute track, beautifully. You have a pink gold version, as I mentioned, of the double ellipse case. An absolutely stunning watch. I think especially this particular version of the double ellipse case is almost a sculptural work of art in its own right. There's very little not to love. And once again, the papillon has the importance of being actually the last model, the last design that Daniel Roth was seriously involved with in the brands that carries his own name. These were made again in 110 pieces in pink gold, 110 in white gold, and only 30 in platinum. They were built on the Girard-Perregaux caliber 300 blank, but everything was finished, decorated, and engraved by hand. As you can see, the rotor itself commemorates that 10-year history, that decade of Daniel Roth's independent existence, and also carries the unique number of the watch. It's an oscillating weight that matches the pink gold of the case. This is, by the way, the proper Daniel Roth buckle that as you can see, replicates some of the contours of the unique case design. And this watch is called the Papillon, or the butterfly, because of the unique design and layout of the dial. Of course, beautiful piece, number 20 of 110, 250 examples altogether when you count the white gold and platinum units too. This is lot 29 for a Daniel Roth Papillon in pink gold. The current bidding, with about 3 days to go, stands at $42,600 in US dollars. We have about 5 minutes left, but 5 watches. If you want to send any contributions, or if you simply want to click the like button, the time is now. We're going to talk about the Daniel Roth Perpetual Calendar. This is, in fact, a design. This is, in fact, a complication that is not only associated with Daniel Roth's proper name, but also Philippe Dufort, because to design a perpetual calendar, Daniel Roth actually collaborated with Philippe Dufort because they were trying to devise an instantaneously jumping perpetual calendar. This is called, this is based on the Lemania 8810 with a module developed in collaboration between Roth and Dufort. And I think the same base was used for Gérard Janta's perpetual calendars at the time, and Daniel Roth chose that ébauche because he was familiar working on it through Gérard Janta. So that's a nice little trivia there. I really like the dial design of this piece, even if it lacks the romanticism of the moon phase. Here, I think the combination of the colors on the dial are also incredibly charming. You have the 18 carats double ellipse white gold case, an anthracite gray backdrop with those distinctive vertical stripes, and the hour track is Breguet frosted salmon with Roman numerals. You have at around 6 o'clock an overlapping pointer dates, which also encircles leap year indicator. And there are two apertures that are on top of it and at the very center of the dial for the month, for the day of the week and month respectively. The hands, again, keeping up with the tradition of Breguet, which Daniel Roth played a primary role in resurrecting for the modern era, in resurrecting for the era of the modern wristwatch. They are fashioned in stainless steel and heat blued against the beautifully decorated engine turns dial. What a stunning piece. And here's a look at the movements with an oscillating weight in full gold, itself with a guilloche decoration. Absolutely stunning. This is lot 30 for a Daniel Roth perpetual calendar in 18 karat white gold with a beautiful two-tone dial executed in anthracite gray backdrop and salmon sectors. It had a starting bid of $46,100, but the current bid stands at $76,000 with about 3 days left. That was lot 30. I told you that we were traveling back in time, so we are gonna go back to the OG, so to speak. This is an amazing piece of the tourbillon régulateur, the original design that launched the Daniel Roth brand. Daniel Roth was, of course, working on the tourbillon before he had to leave Breguet behind, because the Chomet brothers, due to their own legal troubles, were almost running the legacy brands to the ground. So Daniel Roth, whether he wanted it or not, whether it was the right time or not, had to set off on his own path in 1988. And he had already worked with Lemania to design a tourbillon movement for the wristwatch for Breguet. So his fingerprints are all over the Breguet tourbillon as well. And incidentally, we are gonna discuss in tomorrow's episode of Rare, Danny Roth era Breguet. So I would love to see all of you there as well. Nick Butter, thank you so much. $7. I really appreciate your support. What I like about Daniel Roth is the case shape, so different from the norm. I think that's it. He has had I think he has a very strong and unique imagination to begin with. If it weren't for him, I'm not sure if the tourbillon would have really taken off in this way in the world of wristwatches. Because again, we were at the beginning of the live stream, we were talking about AP's 1986 tourbillon automatique, and here in around just 2 years after that, he realized it both with Breguet and Daniel Roth, and the rest is history, really, in the sense that making a tourbillon wristwatch has more or less become the rite of initiation for any prestigious watchmaker, whether you're a small independent or a larger brand that is trying to establish or burnish its high horological pedigree. That's been the norm. More recently, of course, the balance seems to have shifted away from the tourbillon, even away from complications altogether, and strictly focused with time-only watches. But there is about almost 3 decades between then and now, where tourbillon was the absolute and ultimate prestige. This is number 5 of limited edition. You can see again the unique vertical stripes engine turn decoration that is pretty consistent, even though Danny Roth has also inherited and used the hobnail pattern, the Claude Paris motif from the Breguet revival as well. More rarely, you would see a lot of these early creations with that decoration as well. Beautiful opening to display the tourbillon cage, which has a very fine and lovely polished bridge. And you have a three-pronged three-pronged seconds hands, all of varying lengths, fashioned out of stainless steel, heat blued, and there's the stacked sector for each 20 seconds. So the 1 minute tourbillon shows the seconds, indicates the seconds on these three stacked 20 seconds long seconds counters. And of course, there's an off-center dial shifted towards 12 o'clock, Roman numerals on a Breguet frosted track, which ends up constituting a beautiful two-tone silver dial, and the heat blued stainless steel arrow hands completes the picture. This is what he called tourbillon régulateur. It's not a regulator dial per se, but a double-face tourbillon. So you have, once again, the anthracite gray vertically striped backdrop on the back, a power reserve indicator, and the dates, the pointer dates, both shown, both indicated with heat blued hands. It's a stunning creation, really. A reiteration of the original piece that launched Daniel Roth's independent brand, number 5 of 20, white gold with a two-tone silver dial in the unique double ellipse, or, oh, my bad, this is stainless steel, so even more, probably even more desirable, because there are not many stainless steel régulateur or double face tourbillons released under the Daniel Roth name. So this is actually a version of his two-sided tourbillon, of his tourbillon régulateur, in a limited edition of stainless steel case that faithfully reproduces the original creation, but this time in stainless steel. Number 5 of 20 pieces is at lot 31 for the Independents Part 2 auction of Ineichen Zurich, and the piece started with a bid of 103,650 in US dollars, and with about 3 days to go, the current bid stands at 161,200. Once again, I want to remind you, tomorrow we have a special episode where I will focus on the Breguet in the Danny Roth era, Breguet as it was revived by Chomet Brothers, François Baudet as CEO and Daniel Roth as master watchmaker. I'm posting the link here. We're going to focus on, I think, 4 or 5 models talk about the history of the revival a little bit and the distinct and important role that Daniel Roth played in it as a master watchmaker, how he implemented or adapted Breguet's designs, aesthetic details into the world of wristwatches, what models, what designs are representative of that era, how do they appear on the secondary markets, how desirable they are, how demanded they are in the auction circuits. We're going to talk about all of these things, so it will be very informative in a broader sense. I think a lot of fun as well, and certainly very educational as well in terms of making certain kinds of decisions in today's market and observing trends in the last 5 years or so. So I hope you can join me tomorrow. Again, thank you for your support and presence. Please don't forget to hit the like button before you step out. In either case, as I mentioned, I'm almost at 2,000 subscribers or followers on both YouTube and Instagram. So if you can share the links with your friends, with other collectors, with fellow watch enthusiasts, I would really, really be eternally grateful. I'm really thankful to all of you who have sent in super chats today. Basil's Bezels, St. Peter, and Nick Butter. Thank you so much for all your support. Basil, thank you also for being a member of the channel, and you have also supported me for a very long time on Patreon too. So thank you so much. Again, there are all sorts of other options if you want to contribute more to the channel. As I like to mention, I'm completely independent, which means I'm not directed by or beholden to anyone in the industry, none of these auction houses, none of the gray market dealers. It means I can speak my mind, I can express my own knowledge and my opinion only, and I'm only beholden to you. I'm at your behest, which also means that I count on your support as well. So any way you can contribute is great. Again, if nothing else, I thank you for hitting the like button and leaving some comments down below once the live broadcast ends, and it is about time now. Thank you again for being there. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, wear and enjoy your watches. Stay safe, stay healthy. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.